Good evening and most welcome to Heidegger 1029. Today we will discuss what would happen if we tend to the affordances, if we deepen our understanding about this sort of interacting place between us and the surrounding exogenous place. I think this could be understood in different parts. Why? To better attend to the affordances means exactly the same thing as you treat your, for instance, a vehicle better. Taking care of it when it's dirty, keeping rust at bay, fixing the tires on a regular basis, and so on. Caring for the affordances is that already. You are already doing it. It is more of getting into the why rather than just the passive question how, what, when. And that is by looking more comprehensively into the matter how things are working, to get a better understanding of the functioning, and everything will be smoother. So affordance is the thing that surrounds us, but it's not the thing, it is something for us. To say it's a thing, an object, it's a ludicrous oversimplification. It doesn't make even any sense. So do refrain from using the word object or thing. Everything is different, and even though Descartes wanted to see a difference between thoughts and what you could say things that we could solidly interact with, like hard things, it doesn't really make any sense in reality to make that distinction. They are something for us. We can grasp them, we can approach them, we can distance ourselves to them, we can turn them. You see, this goes for thoughts as well, ideologies as well. There is no sense of making a difference. And this is what I said before. It is not where the cut is made that is important. It is the why of the cut. If it doesn't make any sense, then healing the cut would make the thing much worse. Because that would assume to the idea that the cut would be possible. When we slowly go past the strife between polarities, we'll be able to dwell into actual working systems. I will put you an example directly. Criticizing, for instance, communism will hide its working procedures, those beneath the surface. That is, for instance, equal rights in the working place, planned economy, equal votes, directed workforce, relocated production and consummation facilities. Well, it's a planned economy. Going into the details underneath, instead of assuming everything can be understood top to bottom, that the major traits are deciding the lower traits, a sort of codependence that is not of nature. We spoke many times how codependence actually works. It's quite different from the take. And by going into the smaller, we could see how things actually are working, not this abstraction or cut-off view. I would call it cut-off view. And here we will understand, from understanding the smaller things, we can understand the bigger one. There will be a blockage of the bigger picture if we only go for the surrounding area, because it's how we subjectively decide to delimit something, put frontiers on something. That is not a natural line. It's a constructed line. Who told you you're allowed to say something starts here and something stops here? The suggestion from Heidegger and the voice of the friend is rather to go into the small detail, have a direct perception of it, and that will build a much truer whole picture. We will now get the smaller information that will also strengthen the larger picture. This is one of those unquestioned assumptions that all of us, we can make limitations in what we usually call ideologies, theories, things, events, movements. And we seem to be doing that from the outside, unassumingly. And by confirming that with others, we get into an unaware habit of being less attentive to what is actually happening. It's a lack of being there, no longer present. And do not ever assume that you are always present to your thoughts. We are almost never that. We don't know what we're thinking. And I would say the regular model with the ready-made divided things, unassumed, unhypothesized, not going from the smaller to the bigger, not going from how, for instance, a fern is constructed, but also a scallop, an octopus, a snail, well, why not an elephant? Goes from the smaller iterations to the bigger. And that will actually build something very akin to something of an affordance. A ball, for instance, is made of smaller structure, not atoms, but iterations of interactions in a dimensionality that is fractal, not three-dimensional. That is more of an instrument from technology. And I have to add to this, if you are into the mode, if you are an active person and do projective, active thinking, you will already do this. There is no possibility of success if you don't have this conception of what is bigger and what is smaller, because you won't be able to tell what the world is. You won't understand it. And that's the very big importance of starting at the bottom, going to the top, so to speak. But it's not about that either. Indeed, it's a questioning of the whole top-bottom. Not criticizing it because this is an alternative. Doesn't even care about the top-bottom. We need also, and this is another thing, a third one, putting down the knife on negating, criticizing and claiming truths preemptively. And I would say this is the correspondence to what I mentioned earlier when it came to like sort of affordances, things, ideologies, theories and so forth, clusters of thoughts, and saying what a sort conglomerate of thinking is by negating it. The negation in itself is not a problem. What is problematic is what negation demands. It demands a simplification of what it negates. Into the room is simpler than out of the room, because out of the room negates all directions bar one, and that is the direction into the room. But it's also a simplification. Why? Well, no longer do we have a clear direction. And we know the world is a clear direction in the end. So out of, the negation is not sloppy, but a negation. Do an abstraction. We need to be aware of that when we do the negation. Don't make the negation a foundation for some ontic mood. You sort of can create things from negation. This is of course also explosion, which I might think you already gathered by now. Explosion from classical logic, where negating something makes everything come into existence. Let me go into two things here that get up when we start with affordances or look deeper into Heidegger. Heidegger calls this Sorge, and it's a very important thing. Sorge I will today simplify radically and use two words that are not accurate. I need to invent some neologisms for my own, so I will call them focus and awareness. Focus, it's what disappears when we lump things together. For instance, as I mentioned, lumping communism together without going to its finer details. Not looking to the iterations. And that makes focus impossible, because all of a sudden there is an overcrowdedness in the mind space of all those things that sort of become ontic. They demand space. They will take space, energy, direction from you. And they will do no good, because they're not accurate to what has actually happened. They are random, subjective takes. And this, I said earlier, often we are a complete agreement verbally of what we mean by a certain thing. But that is just a shared word. It doesn't sort of refer to something shared meaning-wise. So we all have different takes, and that makes for very ineffectual communication. But worse, it sort of draws one into the mousetrap or the wheel, the Ferris wheel, going around and round and round and round. You get caught up in the idea we share. What you will notice, your words will have no longer any effect on others. It won't even have effect on yourself. Thinking is, as I said, an affordance. Taking care of all things, all affordances. It would be fair to say that there will be a general improvement of the taking care, the Sorge. And this taking care, the Sorge, as Heidegger calls it, I call focus today for some reason. You see, focus should not be seen as a mental thing. I think that's very confusing if you start seeing that way. Focus is as much a thing of the outside. If you do Sorge, or you pay attention, you get the focus, and you get that but with training. You train yourself to understand the world, become interesting. It's curiosity that starts this. An honest curiosity of what the affordances are. And that curiosity will become what I call focus. A clearer mind, not as overcrowded, more detailed, and also more also being able to universalize. Both those things are very important. A clogged up mind can do neither, can't do generalizations, can't do exactitude. It is destined to become confused, non-understandable, and in the end you will cling desperately to something. You will have this cramped posture, needing to be extra stabilized, and then you lack focus completely. But if you understand the affordances, you get focus. I don't think focus is possible without understanding the affordances. Focus cannot be something you trained solely in your head or even in your body. The whole world needs to be in on it. And there is a good reason we today feel stressed out, and that's so many things on our mind. This idea that they block each other out and they get piled on top of each other. The second thing here, attention or awareness, has to do with level, like that we can do different things on different levels, something that is usually seen to be excluded in that normal take on the world. This also has to do with putting in hearing, perching your ear or pick up your ear, listening in. And once you starting to interact more, listening in, you become softer, not as narrow, and there will be a deepening once you go down into the iteration. And typical for true scale is not built up by comparison. One thing here and one thing here. We have the Julian Barber scale, the truer scale. And then you have just one thing that tells the scale itself, independent of a comparing thing. And once you start to understand that needs to be in the whole system, there will be a possibility to have several levels going on at the same time. And I think that's necessary for thinking. You need long time, medium time, and short time plans, projections, as well as doing retention, short time, medium time, long time, and so forth. That can all be going on if you have a truer scale. So they can independently work and do their thing, enforcing each other, because fractality is not exclusive. Fractals could be superlayered, transponded on top of each other. And this is something Stefan Mangold showed with his amplitude measurement. They can be put on top of each other, nothing gets lost in the amplitude, but it gets sort of explicitly, and then you have time, and then you have space. It's a different take altogether. This is what we call in Swedish överlagrad, that they could be put on top of each other. A little bit like you have in these see-through plastics, and you have a presentation. In the olden days, presentation was that you can put another plastic on top of one, and then another, and you get a more and more layers. This is what I mean. This is what fractality can do. But the usual dimensions, so to speak, that's just blocking out of that possibility. There are no possibility in thinking in dimensions. Everything is fractality. X, Y, Z, it's impossible to think of. What you do instead is block out the possibility of overlayering. So you are handicapping yourself in order to perceive 3 dimensions. This is exactly what I mean. And of course this lumping is the same thing as N2s, the fast twitch neurons, because no attention awareness is possible anymore when you can have only one level. The thoughts are going to get into each other, and in the end, because there is no higher level or above level, there can be no control of the thoughts that goes around under. In the end, the thoughts would push each other in a sort of cause and effect method. Like you're sitting in the motor line in the highway, and you feel, oh, I'm hungry. I feel annoyed. Oh no, there's a queue coming up. Oh no, I don't have enough petrol. Oh no. There is no choice there, and there is no possibility of choice until it gets opened up. No method in the world would work. No meditation, no focus in training or anything would work, because it's how they are constructed, the thoughts. And once you understand, you can overlay them, and you can be able to get into that. You can have all the thinking, and you can have another level, and that's awareness. So you can see where your thinking line on a lower level is going. So this is overlayering. It's still, in a way, in the amplitude side, one singular point, one peak. But at the same time, it could be an infinite of different fractalities, and they don't sort of nullify each other. It's not the sum of them that is the working thing. The fractality needs to be this. And this is exactly like a healthy heart. The overlaying, the disturbances, as we call them sometimes, are absolutely necessary for a strong line, a directedness. It is like the heart has different thinking levels. And this is one of the reasons it was so more encompassing, more allowing before when we thought with our hearts. It allowed for more. Whereas this brain consciousness is just one level, it's crowdedness, and you cannot control. You are out of control. Because this thing constructs itself, it pushes thoughts, and in the end, I would say the thoughts are coming so close to each other, there is simply no awareness of the thinking. And that is a little bit like falling into a black hole. Once you've fallen over the event horizon, there is no return. How can you find your thoughts again? And you might start wondering if thinking ever was something you had. And you just start acting outwards. Utåtagerande. Just simply reacting without no thinking on the depth or on the width. But all these things can be helped by understanding affordances. They are something for you. And that's a more gentle world as well. This is not a cold object anymore. It's something for my hand. It's not an object. It's an hand able, as Gibson said. And this is to be so handen. So oddly enough, James J. Gibson and Martin Heidegger, they go quite well together. And what Gibson is, in his bit more simplified, sketchy outlining, is doing is helping us to reach deeper into Heidegger and also destruction, that would mean deconstruction. Another thing that is quite interesting is, in this way, one could say that everything is contained in the moment, so to speak, but there is no line of moments. But see it this way, you have the past, you have the now, you have the future in one moment. It is all something that could be developed, going from the amplitude to the frequency plane. Then it got folded out. But don't think about this example as there were many points on a long line. Then you are destroying this sketch. Easily done, and I do it myself all the time. But be aware, maybe there's a feeling to this, oh, that's very limiting, everything is just one moment. No, because there are no other moments in that description. This can also be showed in space Y, there, here, there. They are coming from one point that's including both here and there, as the time point includes both past, now, and future. This is another way of looking on the nesting that I mentioned before, how movements nest themselves into each other to make a more complex weave of time. And that is actually the coming and going of time, which is very interesting. Where do I have to get back to? Well, it's getting late here. The sun is vaguely going down, not much. But I wish you a very pleasant night, sleep tight, and bye-bye for now. Yes, I just want to mention, I call that proprioception of reality. Because when we get keener in our proprioception, we will be able to localize where in time we are and where in space we are. So in a way, the first sense is without a doubt proprioception. It's a sort of sense which all other senses are dependent. And I would say it contains so much more than we can think of. But maybe one example could be a handshake. When you shake hands with someone, you know there is a lot going on there. But you usually ignore it because we have this divided take on reality where the senses are separable. And in this separable way, vision usually for our seeing people takes the first hand. And a seeing without proprioception is blind, doesn't see anything. Everything is connected to where in the world you are, because you need to be localized, and that oversimplification of X, Y, Z localization simply won't work because it's not of reality. Needs to be a real affordance connected time and space. It simply won't work otherwise. That, of course, was also the message of Auge Bohr. Don't get stuck up in existences, something I called objects here, because then you will be lost in your equations if you do maths on quantum mechanics, but you will be lost in reality if you don't position yourself in proprioception. That is balance up. Otherwise you'll be lost and you'll be having to use your eyes for something they are not made to do, and that is to localize where you are in the world in accordance with the horizon. And that is something done solely by neurons too, and no one else, the N2. And these neurons will build the fast twitch muscles, and then you are this nervous system. This nervous, in the term jittery, will tire out and you will have to lie down and then enforce even more pain, torture to your system by collapsing. T2 is either over-tensed or over-relaxed. All tense, nervous, stressed out people are always Sometime during the day, over-relaxed, falling together, falling back in the sofa, slouching, not balanced, and then the rest of the day they are over-tensed. Often with a very calm demeanor. You don't have to look stressed, you don't have to do stressy thing, but your mind will be so quick you can't enter into it. And if you can't enter into your mind, that's a very sure sign that you are stressed out. Maybe it happened so long time ago that you've forgotten and you see this as a normal calmness. It's not. No living organism on this world, bar humans, are ever over-relaxed. Have you seen an over-relaxed dog? No. I don't think so. Okay, bye.